Hey.
Alright, y'all, I just got done rewatching, well, I can't really call it a rewatch because it was my first time watching the game between the Toronto Raptors and the Minnesota Timberwolves from last night. Raptors come away with a dub in their home/season opener. Once again, that elite Toronto defense was on full display. They were giving absolute fits to Anthony Edwards, Karl-Anthony Towns, and the rest of the Timberwolves offense. But as the title and thumbnail of this video suggests, let's start by talking about Scottie Barnes. Now, towards the end of the offseason, I was getting extremely high on Scottie Barnes. He had sort of a down year last year, but I think with the new head coach, Darko Rajakovic, I think he is primed for a nice bounce back season, and this first game was a great step in the right direction. Barnes finished with 17 points, 8 rebounds, 5 assists, had 7 stocks with 2 steals, 5 blocks, also had 4 turnovers, but it seems like everybody in the NBA is turning the ball over a lot, at least through that first night of games. Now, the offense from Scottie Barnes was not perfect by any means. He shot 6 of 16, which isn't amazing. He took a lot of threes, but he also did a great job of attacking the rim. He got to the free throw line a few times, but for the most part, he was also just making really good decisions throughout the game, playmaking wise, and I think that's the most important thing to take from this game. Well, that and the fact that he was an absolute monster defensively, which again is huge for his development going forward. Like I mentioned at the top of the video, he had a whole bunch of blocks, 5 of them, and although not everyone was some crazy insane play, most of them were. Now, a lot of them happened when Scottie Barnes was the weak side defender and he was offering some secondary rim protection, and that is the exact perfect role that he should have on this defense. It's a role that many players can have on this Toronto team, especially, just since you have Jakob Poeltl just being a tremendous first line of defense at the rim. Anyone from Siakam, OG, even Dennis Schroeder, obviously Scottie Barnes, the guy we're talking about, like any of those guys can provide secondary rim protection, so it's nice to see Scottie step up and put some emphasis on being great in that role. Now, as for the rest of this Toronto team, again, they impressed me during the preseason. They definitely impressed me from this first win last night. And another really key component of that win was OG Anunoby. He hit 4 threes, had 5 stocks of his own, but most importantly, was playing stellar defense on Anthony Edwards throughout this game. He was a big reason why Edwards had such a poor shooting night, his contesting every shot. He was limiting Ant's ability to drive to the rim because OG is also a big body wing. It was overall a very impressive performance. And another great performance came from Dennis Schroeder in his Raptors debut. I'm still amazed at how much of an upgrade I feel like he is over Fred VanVleet on this team at the starting point guard spot. And it's weird to me because it really doesn't feel like, in a vacuum, I don't think Dennis Schroeder is necessarily a better player than Fred VanVleet, but in terms of a fit for this Raptors team, Dennis Schroeder is just so much more mature as a veteran. He's great at controlling pace, at controlling the offense, and being an on-court leader and coach. Plus, he's still an absolute dog defensively at the point of attack, just an absolute gnat, willing to pick up full court. And he has truly been on a heater ever since the FIBA tournament. So yeah, overall, this Toronto defense continues to be an absolute albatross. I might have been a little too low on the Raptors with my offseason predictions. We'll have to see from here, but it was, again, a great start for Toronto. As for Minnesota, it was honestly kind of impressive that they did almost come away with a win here, despite the fact that the Raptors felt like they were in control for most of the game. Just looking at the box score, it looked like Anthony Edwards had a solid game with 26 points, 14 rebounds, but it took him 27 shot attempts to get there, and again, he was forcing it at times, he was struggling. There were a few times I was watching where he definitely could have made some better reads on the defense, and rather than dishing to an open teammate, he decided to try and take on 2 or 3 Toronto Raptors defenders, and it just very rarely worked. As for karl-Anthony Towns, he shot 8 of 25 from the field, 2 of 10 from 3, and honestly, a lot of those threes were pretty open looks, and he just could not get anything at all to fall. Even the floaters he had, it seemed like Toronto was willing to give him that shot, and it's a shot I've seen Towns hit before consistently, and I don't even think he got one to fall today, or in that game, so. He also had 4 turnovers, and they were all pretty bad turnovers, like to the point I felt like he had at least 6 or 7, and I was kind of surprised to look at the box score after the game and see he only had 4. And sticking with the turnover theme, Rudy Gobert, again, it says he only had 2 on the box score, but I feel like there were at least 6 or 7 with him as well, where it was just maybe not him making the turnover, but a teammate passing to him where he just couldn't catch the ball or catch it cleanly or went out of bounds, and it was just a really awful game from Rudy Gobert. It just is always funny to me in these sort of matchups when he's up against someone like a Jakob Poeltl and he just gets completely outplayed. If I were a Minnesota Timberwolves fan, I would be absolutely devastated by performances like this, especially when you consider how big of a contract he has. But when you're going up against this Raptors defense, it's important that your non-star players are able to step up and make shots, and just no one really seemed willing to step up for this Minnesota Timberwolves team. And that ended up leading to Karl-Anthony Towns and Anthony Edwards pressing at times offensively. They ended up taking 52 combined shots of the 100 total shots that the Timberwolves took. And when you consider the fact that they only made 16 combined shots, that's just a recipe for a loss. So it was about as bad of a first game as you could get if you're a Minnesota Timberwolves fan. I'm still really high on them for the rest of the season. I think overall this was a really tough first game to have to start the season, having to go into Toronto and play this absolute monster of a defense. So I think they'll turn it around eventually. I still, again, am completely sold on the Timberwolves being a good regular season team this year. But that's all I got for this one. As always, if you enjoyed the video, like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff, and I'll see y'all in the next one.